There's a quiet kind of magic that doesn't announce itself. No signs, no thunder, just a pull, a whisper. And if you've found yourself here, watching this, hearing these words right now, then that whisper inside you has grown loud enough to guide you home. Because this moment, it isn't random, it isn't accidental, it's a rendezvous, a meeting point between your frequency and a message that's been circling around you for quite some time. We're taught to believe that life works like a straight line, that things happen because we planned them, that we must strive, chase, earn, or pray hard enough to be heard. But the deeper truth, the universe doesn't respond to how loud we pray. It responds to how quietly we resonate. You see, your vibration, the frequency you carry beneath your words, beneath your smile, beneath your actions, is the true language of creation. It's not what you say that moves the quantum field. It's who you are when no one is watching. It's the silent knowing beneath your doubt, the softness beneath your fight, the presence beneath your performance. And maybe you're tired of trying so hard, tired of holding it all together, tired of saying the right things, thinking the right thoughts, following every step as if there were some magical formula to get your life to finally respond. But here's something no one told us loud enough: you don't need to earn alignment. You just need to remember it. This video didn't come to you because you were scrolling at the right time or said the right affirmation this morning. It came because something inside you shifted subtly, deeply. Maybe you surrendered. Maybe you softened. Maybe you stopped running, even for a breath. And in that breath, your frequency changed. In that pause, the universe responded not with fireworks, but with resonance, not with a reward, but with a reminder that says, you are not broken. You are not behind. You are not missing anything. You are simply waking up from the noise of becoming and returning to the truth of being. You didn't come here to find more information. You came here to feel something you already know, not in your mind, but in your body, not through explanation, but through remembrance. Like the way your shoulders soften when someone looks at you with no expectation, like the way your breath deepens when no one's watching. That's what this is. And so, I'm not here to teach you. I'm here to sit with you in that place beneath the words, to speak to the part of you that never needed fixing, to call forward the part of you that never left, the part that has been waiting patiently for your return, not with judgment, but with open arms. There's no step-by-step plan here. No urgent call to change, only an invitation to come back to the present, to come back to the frequency that was always yours, before the noise, before the striving, before the performance. Because the truth is, the world doesn't change when you get better. The world begins to shift the moment you stop pretending you're not already whole. So just for now, let go of the questions. Let go of the how long, the what if, the what next, and feel the stillness underneath these words. Feel the permission to be exactly where you are. Feel the quiet love of a universe that has never stopped listening to the real you, the one beneath the roles, the stories, the effort. And if all you do in this moment is exhale, then you've already begun. Welcome back. This wasn't a coincidence. It was you finally aligning with a moment that's been waiting for you all along. 1. You stop waiting for clarity and start living as if you already know. There's a point in the journey where you stop asking, what should I do next? Not because the answer suddenly appears, but because something within you no longer needs the answer to begin. You've probably noticed this shift. It's subtle, quiet, almost imperceptible. It doesn't come with a trumpet or a grand revelation. It comes in the form of a calm decision, made without certainty, but made from peace. The mind, by nature, demands clarity. It wants maps, proof, guarantees. It says, I'll move forward once I know where this leads. But the soul has always known. And one day, without planning it, you just start living like someone who already knows who they are. You wake up and make choices that don't require outside validation. You act not because fear is chasing you, not because desperation is pulling you, but because a quiet inner compass says, "This is the way." It doesn't mean you figured it all out. It means you no longer need to, because something deeper than logic is now guiding you. Call it intuition, call it resonance, call it remembering. And when you begin to act from that place, something shifts, not just inside you, but in the field around you. The quantum field, the unseen web that connects thought, emotion, and manifestation no longer holds back your desires like a parent withholding a reward. It begins to move, it begins to respond, not because your prayer got louder, but because your doubt got keener. You're no longer trying to manipulate the timing. You're no longer asking, "Is this the right path?" You're simply walking it as if it already is. And the irony. That's when the evidence starts to show up. Not as confirmation, but as reflection. You get the phone call. The opportunity lands in your lap. The coincidence becomes too precise to ignore. And you realize, life was never waiting for the perfect version of you. It was waiting for the true version of you, the one who finally decided to trust without knowing. This is the beginning of frequency awakening. Not fireworks, not mountaintop visions, just that simple but sacred shift from needing answers to living your truth anyway. And when you do that, when you wake up and move, speak, breathe, as someone who already is, you become a match, not just to outcomes, but to alignment itself. You don't just attract your future, you embody it. And that's when the delays dissolve. Not because the universe suddenly sped up, but because you stopped slowing yourself down with hesitation. So if you find yourself not needing to explain your next step, if you no longer care whether it all makes sense to others or even to your old self, if your life feels like it's flowing from a quiet knowing rather than a loud certainty, then congratulations. You've stopped waiting, and you've started remembering, not who the world told you to be, but who you've always been beneath the waiting, beneath the worry, beneath the noise. And that is the first sign that your frequency is awakening, because clarity isn't a destination. It's a vibration you begin to live before the world ever reflects it back. 2. You stop comparing and start resonating. There's a beautiful silence that comes the day you stop measuring your life against someone else's. Not because you suddenly feel superior, not because you finally made it, but because, for the first time, you can feel your own rhythm. Comparison is the thief of presence. It sneaks in through the cracks of self-doubt and whispers, "You should be further along by now. You should look like them, sound like them, succeed like them." And for so long, we believe it. We scroll, we analyze, we compare our beginnings to someone else's middle. We count our steps and wonder why theirs seem longer, faster, more graceful. But one day, something shifts, and it doesn't shout. It hums. A soft knowing rises from within. I am not late. I am not early. I am right on time. For me, it's as if you suddenly tune into a radio station that's been playing your song all along, but you were too distracted by the noise of everyone else's music to hear it. And now, you're not rushing. You're not proving. You're not looking sideways. You're just walking at your own pace. And that pace, my friend, is sacred. When your soul begins to resonate with its own frequency, something magical happens. The idea of competition dissolves. The illusion of being behind fades away. You stop needing to be better than anyone, because you finally feel aligned with yourself. You begin to notice that the person next to you isn't ahead. They're just on a different path. Their sunrise isn't your sunrise. Their mountain isn't your mountain. And that's not only okay, it's divine. Because in the quantum field, there is no hierarchy, no first place, no late bloomers, only alignment. only energy finding its natural flow back to center. And in that center, there is no scoreboard. There's only resonance. You see, the frequency of your soul doesn't compete, it harmonizes. And when you finally return to that harmony, you start seeing beauty where you once saw threat. In others' success, you no longer see a reflection of what you lack. You see confirmation of what's possible. You see inspiration, not intimidation. This is how you know your frequency is rising. When someone else's light no longer dims yours, because you're no longer measuring light. You're simply becoming it. And here's the most powerful part. As you stop comparing, you start attracting, not because you're trying harder, but because you're no longer leaking energy into illusions that don't belong to you. Your field clears, your alignment sharpens, and suddenly, the very things you used to chase begin to find their way to you without struggle, without force. Because when you're truly resonating, you no longer seek proof. You are the proof. So if lately you felt less urgency to catch up, if you found yourself cheering for others without secretly shrinking inside, if you've stopped checking timelines and started trusting your own, then you've stepped into a new octave of being. You're no longer running a race. You're returning to rhythm. And in that rhythm, you don't just walk your path, you become the path. Not because you arrived, but because you stopped leaving yourself. 3. You stop following formulas and start letting inner feeling lead. There's a moment, quiet, often unnoticed when the questions begin to fall away. What's the right step? What strategy should I use? What did the successful ones do? You stop asking, not because you've figured it all out, but because you've finally remembered your path isn't a copy-paste template. For so long, we've been taught to follow formulas. Wake up at 5. Say this affirmation 10 times. Follow these 5 steps to manifest anything. And at first, it feels comforting, like you're being handed a map. But over time, the map begins to feel foreign, rigid, empty, like walking someone else's journey while your own stands patiently untouched. You try to fit your soul into structures designed for minds. You try to make your unique essence conform to a mass-produced model. And something inside you whispers at first softly, then louder, with every step away from yourself. This isn't it. And then one day, without even meaning to, you pause. You stop reaching for the next tip, the next rule, the next guarantee. You get quiet. And in that quiet, something ancient begins to stir. It's not a voice. Exactly. It's more like a tuning fork, a vibration that hums in your chest when you're moving in truth and pulls away when you're not. It doesn't give you answers in words. It gives you resonance, and that resonance becomes your compass. You begin to feel your way forward, not think your way through, and in doing so, you unlock something the formulas could never teach: presence. Because presence is what real creation is made of. Not repetition, not imitation, but alignment. When you live from alignment, every step you take, no matter how small, carries the full weight of your truth. And the universe, the quantum field, responds to that with precision. Not because you followed the steps perfectly, but because you stopped pretending and started vibrating from who you really are. You no longer care how others made it. You're not studying their methods. You're listening inward and letting your own frequency show you the way. And it's not always logical. It often defies the mind's desire for predictability. You'll feel the nudge to rest when everyone else says, push harder. You'll feel the call to move when the plan says, wait. But you follow the nudge anyway, because you've come to trust something far wiser than strategy you're knowing. This is what it means to shift from control to coherence, from force to flow, from efforting to allowing. And it doesn't mean you do nothing. It means what you do comes from a deeper place, a place where your actions are infused with energy that matches your intention. It's not what you do that creates your reality. It's the frequency you hold while you do it. So if lately you've felt less drawn to the latest blueprint, if you've begun to close the books, pause the podcasts, and put down the step-by-step lists, and instead, you've found yourself breathing more, sensing more, tuning in more, then trust that, because you're not lost, you're simply no longer outsourcing your direction. You're letting life speak to you in your native tongue feeling. And when you live this way, you don't just walk your path. You weave it, moment by moment, heartbeat by heartbeat, from a place no one else can lead, but you. 4. You stop begging for change and start becoming it. There comes a sacred turning point in the inner journey when you no longer plead with the universe for change, because you have become the very energy that creates it. We've all been there, haven't we? Kneeling beside our hopes, whispering to the stars, "Please, let it happen. Please, just one sign. Please, just a little more time." And there's no shame in those prayers. They come from a tender place, the part of us that longs to be seen, supported, loved. But the deeper truth, the universe does not respond to desperation. It responds to alignment. It mirrors your state of being, not your state of wanting. So when you say, "I want peace," but vibrate in anxiety. "I want abundance," but speak in scarcity. "I want love," but walk in fear. You send a mixed signal, and the quantum field reflects that mix right back to you. But something begins to shift the moment you stop asking for change and start embodying it. Not pretending, not forcing, but genuinely becoming the version of yourself who already lives in the reality you desire. You stop looking at the clock. You stop refreshing the page. You stop needing a tracking number from the universe. Instead, you breathe. You breathe as someone who has already arrived. You wake up and make your tea like someone who is already free. You walk down the street with the ease of someone who no longer needs to get there. You move through your day as one who is not waiting for life to begin, but who is living as if it already has. And in that state of being, something miraculous happens. Reality begins to bend. Not because you forced it, not because you used the right affirmation, but because your internal world became such a vibrational match to your desired future, that the outer world had no choice but to rearrange itself around you. You're not bending reality with effort, you're syncing with it through frequency. It's like tuning a radio. You don't scream into the static, you adjust the dial, you align, and suddenly, you hear the music that was always playing. This is the essence of true manifestation. Not calling something in, but calling yourself up to the frequency where that thing already exists. You stop being the echo of your past and start becoming the tone of your future. And let's be honest, this path requires courage. It takes practice to sit in the in-between, to no longer beg for the thing, but to live as if it's already done, while no outer sign has appeared yet. That's the sacred leap. That's the moment your faith is no longer a wish but a frequency. And that frequency is what makes the invisible visible. So if lately you've caught yourself no longer asking when it will happen, and instead choosing to live like it already has, trust that you are not delusional. You are not faking it. You are creating coherence. You are no longer trying to manifest from lack. You are manifesting from embodiment. And that is the most powerful place you can live from. Because at that point, you don't just wait for change, you become it. And life has no choice but to follow. 5. You stop chasing outcomes and start savoring presence. There's a quiet kind of magic that only reveals itself in the now, not in the future, not in the achievement, but in the breath you're taking right now. If you let it soften you, we've been conditioned to believe that joy is a destination. That peace is something we earn after everything finally works out. That love comes when we become more fix more, I prove more. So we run after the goal. We run after the healing. We run after the version of ourselves that we think will finally be enough to deserve the life we want. And in that running, we miss the very thing we've been chasing. We miss the stillness, the wholeness, the quiet joy that has always been here beneath the noise, behind the striving, beyond the story. There's a moment, often so subtle, it almost escapes you, when the chasing loses its appeal, when you pause not because you're tired, but because you finally remember there is nothing missing from this moment. That truth doesn't come from a book. It comes in a deep breath, in the way sunlight lands gently on your hand, in the way your heart beats not for applause, but because it knows how to love you without needing permission. When you become truly present, even for a second, you begin to see clearly. Joy is not a future event. It's a present awareness. Not because everything outside has been fixed, but because inside, you've stopped resisting what is. And that's when something sacred happens. The moment you release the pressure for life to deliver a particular result, life starts offering gifts you never expected. Not because you mastered the formula, but because you let go of the tension. Presence is not passive. It's powerful. It doesn't mean you give up on your desires. It means you stop postponing your peace until they arrive. You realize that every outcome you've ever wanted was actually a feeling you thought it would give you. So you flip the equation. Instead of chasing the thing to feel the feeling, you cultivate the feeling and let the thing come find you. That's alignment. That's vibrational clarity. That's when the quantum field begins to respond, not to your words or effort, but to the truth of your being. You are no longer a seeker. You become a signal. And it's not that results don't matter. They do. But they're no longer your oxygen. They are no longer the condition for your joy. They are no longer the proof of your worth. You stop living transactionally with the universe. You stop saying, "I'll be happy if," and instead, you say, "I choose to be in harmony now," because now is where all power lives. From that place, life begins to dance with you, not because you begged it to, but because you finally joined its rhythm. You're no longer pushing the river. You're letting it carry you, not because you're passive, but because you've become wise enough to know the real prize was never the result. It was the presence. So if lately you've found yourself pausing more, breathing more deeply, noticing the sky, feeling the warmth of your coffee, smiling at a stranger with no agenda, that's not small. That's awakening. Because to be present, truly present, is to remember that you were never behind, never lacking, never off track. You were just one breath away from everything you thought you had to earn. And now, you're here. And here is holy. 6. You stop carrying wounds as weights and start transforming them. There comes a moment when you're simply too tired to keep holding the pain. Not because you've healed it, but because you're finally ready to stop fighting it. We spend so much of our lives trying to escape what hurt us, trying to outrun the echoes of what went wrong. We pretend, we suppress, we smile through the ache, not to lie, but to survive. And yet, every unspoken wound keeps whispering. It whispers in your relationships, in the way you hold your breath when someone gets too close, in the way you overthink a simple, "Are you okay?" in the way you shrink when it's time to be seen. It's not weakness. It's protection. It's the body remembering what the mind tried to forget. But eventually, the armor becomes heavier than the wound itself. And that's when something shifts. You stop asking, "How do I fix this?" And you start asking, "What if I just let it be here without trying to fix it?" And that, right there, is when the transformation begins. You see, pain doesn't need to be solved. It needs to be seen. And the moment you turn toward it, not with fear, not with judgment, but with presence, it softens. Not all at once, not with fireworks, but like ice in warm hands, it begins to melt. You realize you don't need to heal perfectly. You just need to stop pretending it's not there. You stop performing strength. You start practicing honesty. You sit with your sadness like an old friend. You let your grief speak without rushing it to be quiet. You give your inner child what they never got a safe place to feel. And something sacred happens. The wound doesn't vanish, but it stops defining you. You begin to realize you are not your pain. You are the space that holds it. And that space, your awareness, is where all transformation begins. You don't transmute pain through strategy. You do it through presence. Not "I'll love myself once I've healed," but "I'll love myself even as I heal." This is not passivity. This is power. Because true alchemy isn't about making gold from scratch. It's about finding the gold that was buried beneath the rubble of old stories, shame, and silence. And when you stop pushing the pain away, you discover that pain is not your enemy. Pain is the part of you that loved so deeply. It broke open. It's the evidence that you felt, that you cared, that you were alive. And now, you are strong enough to feel it again without being swallowed by it. You learn to breathe with the ache, not against it. You learn to stay with yourself when it shows up. You become a safe place for your own healing. And in that safety, the wound stops being a wall. It becomes a window. And what shines through compassion, clarity, connection. Because when you've made peace with your own shadows, you stop projecting them onto others. You stop needing to control, to blame, to fix. You become less reactive, more receptive. Not because you're numb, but because you've touched something deeper than the pain. You've touched wholeness, not the kind that looks perfect, the kind that knows I can hold joy and sorrow in the same breath and still choose peace. So if you've been carrying something heavy, not knowing how to let it go, maybe this is your permission. Not to forget, not to force, but simply to turn inward, to offer presence, not pressure, to let the wound speak and let your soul listen. You don't have to carry it like a burden anymore. You can carry it like a teacher, a messenger, a mirror. And maybe, just maybe, you'll see that what once broke you has now built the deepest part of who you are becoming. 7. You stop performing awakening and return to your true frequency. There comes a point in your spiritual journey where you get tired. Not tired of the truth, but tired of trying to look like you're aligned with it. Tired of the perfect morning rituals. Tired of constantly explaining what consciousness means to people who never asked. Tired of the pressure to always radiate love and light, even when your heart feels like a storm inside. And in that moment, something sacred happens. You take the mask off, not because you failed to be spiritual, but because you finally remembered you already are. You see, awakening is not a performance. It's not a costume you wear. It's not the number of books you've read or how well you can quote Rumi. It's the quiet decision to be real, even when it's messy, even when it doesn't look impressive, even when no one claps for it. You stop needing to prove that you're evolving, because now you're simply living it. Not in dramatic shifts or social media captions, but in the way you breathe before reacting, in the way you listen more than you speak, in the way you no longer chase being understood, because you understand yourself. You no longer seek to appear awakened. You simply allow yourself to be. And in that allowing, something beautiful unfolds. Your frequency becomes clear, not louder, not flashier, just clearer, like a still lake reflecting the sky. You're not trying to convince anyone you've arrived, because you know there was never a finish line to begin with. You stop over-explaining your boundaries. You stop apologizing for your softness. You stop decorating your pain with spiritual vocabulary just to make it more palatable. Instead, you breathe. You rest. You let the silence speak for you. You don't need to wear white robes or chant mantras to prove you're connected, because the truth is, your connection was never broken. It was only buried beneath the need to appear connected. Now, you drop the act. You leave the stage, and you step into your life, not as a character, but as your truest self. You cook your meals as a meditation. You fold your laundry as an offering. You smile at a stranger and feel the entire universe smiling back through you. That's presence. That's alignment. That's awakening without the performance. You realize the universe doesn't need your performance. It responds to your resonance. And your resonance gets strongest when you're the most you. Not the curated version, not the guru version, not the always balanced and zen version. Just you breathing, loving, stumbling, growing. Just you fully in your body. Just you no longer chasing a higher state, but living from the sacredness of this one. You begin to trust again, not blindly, but deeply, trusting that being real is enough, trusting that the truth doesn't need a costume, trusting that frequency doesn't require force, it only needs consistency. So if you've been performing your awakening, if you've been trying to look conscious, sound, spiritual, or appear enlightened, this is your permission to stop, not to regress, but to return. Return to what's always been underneath the show, your breath, your presence, your quiet truth. And from that place, your real awakening begins. Not because others see it, but because you feel it, fully, honestly, without needing to explain a single thing. Because now, you're no longer chasing the light. You're simply being it. 8. You stop waiting for permission and start trusting your own timing. There is a moment in every soul's journey when the questions begin to quiet. The ones that used to echo so loudly, am I ready? Is this the right time? Will someone tell me when to begin? You waited for the teacher. You waited for the mentor. You waited for the perfect sign, the perfect alignment, the perfect green light from the world outside. But then something subtle shifted. You began to realize life was never withholding anything from you. It was simply waiting for you to begin. Not when it felt safe, not when you had every answer, but when you decided that your yes, your quiet, trembling, holy yes was enough. You see, timing was never about clocks. It was never about other people nodding in agreement. It was never about the stars arranging themselves just right, so you could feel confident enough to live. It was always about frequency. And your frequency is strongest when you stop second-guessing your right to show up. The delays, they weren't punishments. They were rehearsals in silence. So that when the moment arrived, you would know the sound of your own soul calling you forward. And now that you've heard it, you don't need permission. You are the permission. You don't wait for someone else to give you a role. You walk in your truth, and the role begins to shape around you. You stop asking, can I? And you begin saying, I am. You stop hesitating at the edge of becoming, and you take that sacred first step, not because the world says go, but because you've decided it's time to be seen. This is not arrogance. It's remembrance. It's remembering that you were always the light, not the one waiting at the traffic signal, but the one capable of illuminating the path itself. You are not here to seek validation. You are here to radiate what you know in your bones is true, even if no one claps, even if no one understands, even if you walk alone at first. Because here's the quiet miracle. When you begin without permission, the world begins to rearrange. People show up, opportunities unfold, doors open that were never locked. They were simply waiting for your knock. It's not magic, it's alignment. And alignment begins the moment you stop delaying your truth just to make others comfortable. You stop shrinking to fit their expectations. You stop editing your light to match their dimness. You stop asking, is it okay to shine now? And instead you shine, not with noise, not with ego, but with that quiet, rooted confidence that says, I no longer need to be chosen. I choose myself. So if you've been waiting for the right words, the right time, the right sign, consider this, your mirror. You found this not by chance, but because some part of you is done waiting. Some part of you is already standing at the doorway, barefoot, wide-eyed, whispering, "I'm ready." Not perfect, but ready. And from that whisper, the next chapter begins. Not with a roar, but with a step, a soft, sacred, unstoppable step toward who you've always been becoming. You don't need a spotlight. You are the light. And it's time. 9. You stop speaking to the universe and start echoing it. There was a time when you stood beneath the stars and whispered your wishes into the night. You prayed. You pleaded. You bargained. As if the universe were some distant entity that needed to be convinced. You looked for signs, for repeating numbers, for feathers in strange places, for synchronicities that might say, "Yes, we hear you. You are not alone." But then something shifted. Not suddenly, not loudly, but gently, like a memory surfacing after a long sleep. You began to sense. The universe was never out there. It was never a separate force you had to persuade or impress. It was you, in a greater form, a wider frequency, a vaster awareness, holding you, moving through you, waiting for you to remember. And so you stopped pleading. You stopped performing. You stopped trying to say the right things in meditation, or craft the perfect affirmation to get what you want, because you realized you don't need to speak to the universe. You need to speak as the universe. You stopped asking, "Where is my miracle?" And you started remembering, "I am the miracle. I am the expression of that which creates worlds." You stopped looking for the next sign, because you became the sign, the way you walk, the way you breathe, the way you hold space for others with soft eyes and an open heart. That is the signal. The universe no longer needs to tap you on the shoulder because you're living wide open. And when people ask you, "How did you find this peace? How did you attract such joy?" You don't quote a script. You don't give a step-by-step. You simply smile, because how do you explain what it feels like to become the song? Instead of just humming the melody, you no longer try to manifest from desperation. You radiate alignment. You don't knock on the door of the universe. You realize you are the door, and what flows through you is sacred, not because of effort, but because of allowance. You're not trying to impress life anymore. You're letting life move through you like breath, like tide, like music. You're not begging for connection. You are the connection. And now, when you stand under the stars, you don't ask questions. You simply remember that you are a cell in the body of something infinite, that your desires are not separate from divine will. They are the whispers of the universe trying to become visible. So, instead of asking how, you ask, "Who do I need to become to carry this frequency?" You stop waiting for alignment. You embody it. And just like that, life begins to echo your truth. The people change. The experiences transform. But most importantly, you no longer feel like you're trying to make the universe listen, because you finally know it was never about talking louder. It was about tuning deeper. It was about quieting down enough to hear the voice that was always yours, but so much more than you. Not the voice that begs, not the voice that tries to manifest harder, but the voice that says, "I no longer seek miracles. I live as one." And that's the moment the universe begins to speak back. Not with words, but with everything. When you wake up, everything else begins to wake up too. It's a quiet revolution. Not the kind that makes noise. Not the kind that demands attention or needs to be announced, but the kind that begins in the space between your thoughts, in the stillness after you stop asking, in the softness of your breath when you finally exhale, not to survive, but to arrive. You see, the quantum field does not respond to what you say. It never did. It responds to who you are when no one is watching. It listens to the song of your presence, not the volume of your voice. And the moment you stop trying to talk your way through life and start living in resonance with it, everything begins to shift. Not with fireworks, not with dramatic signs, but with the gentle unfolding of a reality that has always been waiting for you to remember it. No, this wasn't a coincidence. You didn't stumble upon this message by accident. It found you because some part of you deep, ancient, and quietly aware was ready. Not ready to learn more, but ready to feel what you've always known. You're not here to become someone else. You're here to remember who you've always been. So pause. Before you seek the next step, before you reach for another answer, before you rush to fix yourself, just sit and breathe. Not to control, not to achieve, just to be. Can you feel it, that gentle hum beneath your chest? That is not anxiety. That is not doubt. That is resonance. That is you beginning to vibrate in tune with something vast and intelligent and beautifully simple. You don't need to speak louder to be heard. You don't need to convince the universe you're worthy. You just need to be clear. Because when you become clear, not just in words, but in vibration, not just in desire, but in embodiment, the universe doesn't just listen, it begins to echo you. Life starts to mirror your stillness. People start to respond to your presence. Reality itself begins to soften around your alignment. You are not chasing transformation anymore. You are the transformation. You're not waiting for the world to change. You're watching it rise to meet the frequency you've finally remembered how to hold. And in that remembering, there is nothing to fix. There is only the joy of returning. You are the doorway, the light, the rhythm, the silence. You are the answer you were hoping to find in someone else's voice. So from this moment on, let your breath be your anchor. Let your clarity be your compass. And let your frequency be your language. Because the universe is not testing you. It's not withholding. It's not waiting for better words. It's simply waiting for you to become. And now that you have, watch how gently the world begins to respond. Watch how the people shift. Watch how the right doors open. Not because you knocked louder, but because your energy became unmistakable. So sit, breathe, return. You don't need to speak. You just need to vibrate true. And when you do, the universe doesn't just listen. It sings back your name.